Getting beat up by 9 guys at Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jared Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. Cause Stone Cold said so. Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett. Because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah. New Day Rock. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for ya.
Tweet us using the handle @HeelToTheFace.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it.
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jared.
I might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
Jared Wicks, Icebreaker 21, the Heel to the Face podcast is on the air. You can find us on Twitter @HeelToTheFace. So without further ado, we are just a few days away from Backlash. We just came off of the greatest Royal Rumble, and without a doubt, the greatest Royal Rumble when it comes to things to talk about. Definitely. So without a doubt, sure? Let's get to the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the main event of the evening
with a 20-minute time limit.
So as I mentioned, a ton of stuff to talk about the greatest Royal Rumble. Braun Strowman wins the greatest Royal Rumble. All the records have been set. I put out an additional video just a few days ago kind of highlighting some of the moments of the greatest Royal Rumble. But let's talk about, Brandon, what would be the biggest impact of the greatest Royal Rumble that you think that you felt that came from this last Friday's event? Almost 6 hours, about 5 hours long. It ended about 5 o'clock Eastern time. Definitely the longest Royal Rumble when it comes to the length. It broke all the records, as I mentioned. Braun Strowman, 13 eliminations. Daniel Bryan, 1 hour and 16 minutes inside the Royal Rumble. And Mike Canales, the shortest time in a Royal Rumble. So I'm kind of wondering how they're going to sell this. I guess maybe that's where I want to start. How do you now think they're going to approach the Royal Rumble 2019 in January?
Honestly, I think they're really going to have to push the
importance of it.
Yeah, the importance of it. WrestleMania. That's the thing. And here's my take, and here's a quick hot take on the greatest Royal Rumble. I didn't think it was that great, to be honest with you. I didn't think that it was. They hyped it up so much to make it such a great show. And to me, it was. I didn't think it was a great show. I didn't really enjoy it.
So, and I've heard that from a few people, that it felt like a bona fide house show. And I feel that you're saying that, and I feel a lot of other people are saying that, to kind of not admit that WWE just held a WrestleMania in the middle of the day, and that you might have missed part of it because you were working, you weren't really prepared to watch it. More importantly, you weren't invested storyline-wise. So in order to feel that this wasn't exactly a pay-per-view event and not feel like, man, they really denigrated a lot of storylines here and really kind of took the fans in America for granted, we kind of just like, well, it kind of felt like a house show. But let's be serious. I mean, there's been a lot of pay-per-views where titles are defended. There was a change in which we have a new tag team champion on Raw in Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. There have been a lot of pay-per-views in which that has happened. And I know that it didn't feel like a traditional pay-per-view for the aspect that there were a lot of title retentions, but you got to admit, if that was a regular pay-per-view, if that was a WrestleMania, maybe not a WrestleMania, but if that was a SummerSlam, that would have been a pretty big deal. I mean, just from the presentation, the pyrotechnics, the crowd.
I was waiting for that.
The match itself. Might be the most fireworks. Forget just like the traditional pyro, because I don't think it had a lot of pyro. But from fireworks, I mean, because normally they only pull out fireworks at outdoor WrestleManias and stuff like that. That was more fireworks than I've seen at outdoor WrestleManias.
Well, clearly Saudi Arabia has quite the budget. So
I mean, they pulled out a different set, which is something that, to be honest with you, as bad or as house show feeling as this might have been, I still feel that this is going to have a much longer lasting effect than Backlash will this Sunday. Backlash will be at the, once again, Monday Night Raw, SmackDown setup.
You think so?
Are you now higher on Backlash?
I'm not higher on Backlash. I just think the thing with Backlash is, and I know we talked about it last week, I think the matches are going to be better. In my opinion.
You think the matches I think
the matches were short. The only
they had a ton of them. Yeah, it felt like WrestleMania in the issue where they had to sneak a lot of stuff in there.
It was like I think the longest match of the night was Shinsuke and AJ. I didn't have my stopwatch out, but watching the
longest match of the night was the Royal Rumble.
Well, I'm saying a non-Royal Rumble, non-Royal Rumble. Yes, the Royal Rumble match was an hour and a half.
Yes,
and it fell flat. It really did. To me.
You don't feel that it felt like a regular Royal Rumble?
No,
I unfortunately felt like it did, and I didn't want to admit that. In fact, one of the annoying parts about it is the fact that I heard somebody else mention this, so there was really nothing on the line. And at a regular Royal Rumble, there's the WrestleMania main event on the line. So we obviously narrow it down to the 4 or 5 guys we think are going to win this. And now, because there was nothing on the line, it might have felt a little bit better than a Royal Rumble, because truly anyone could win, because no further storylines were needed. So it was a 50-man Royal Rumble where really anything could happen, because there weren't really progressing any storylines. Obviously, there were a few innuendos with Big Cass and Daniel Bryan and stuff like that.
Can I cut you off? Do you really think like somebody like Bo Dallas is going to win the match?
Well,
come on.
No, but I mean, the fact is that we didn't have to be like, well, we already know Daniel Bryan's in a match at WrestleMania against Shane McMahon, so we know he's not going to win.
By the way,
it could have been Daniel Bryan. It could have been anybody, because we don't have, no matter what their future entails, it could have been Shinsuke Nakamura coming back out there and winning it. It could have been AJ as the champion winning it. Those are things that were on the table.
I will say this. As an NXT fan, when I saw those guys come out and they're like NXT, I'm not going to lie, I didn't even know who those guys were.
The reason those guys were out there,
because they're so big.
Well, because NXT was holding a show in Florida that night, and in order to sell the show, they had to have the people in which people would pay to go see it. NXT, they had to have the Adam Coles. They had to have maybe not the Ember Moons, obviously. That women on the show, that's another subject. But they had to have the big stars for NXT in Florida, so they pulled out a lot of people that they felt that they wouldn't necessarily be missing. Now, I don't know the name exactly, but did you hear the story about why the sumo wrestler was in the Royal Rumble?
Was that Baba Tunde or something like that? No, that's
it was.
No. It was. I got it right here. Hiroki Sumi.
Yes. You know why he was in the Royal Rumble?
No.
So again, and this shows why this Royal Rumble takes place. Now I know why the Royal Rumble took place. Now I know why this event was so long. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, wasn't this a good enough event without the Royal Rumble? Did they have to really ruin the Royal Rumble? Yes, they did, because this whole event was pretty much at the demand of the people putting it on in Saudi Arabia. And one of the demands, or one of the requests, was, I would like to see at this event The Undertaker, Yokozuna, and Ultimate Warrior. And I don't know if Vince McMahon exactly said, hey, we don't have 2 of those guys because they passed away. I know you don't really get a lot of the media here. I know movies are just starting to be able to be seen in local cinemas in Saudi Arabia, so maybe you might not know, but Ultimate Warrior and Yokozuna aren't around anymore.
Exactly.
So he found someone who could kind of replace lookalike Yokozuna to fit in the Royal Rumble
and the beauty
to appease the Saudi prince. So when you say, well, this event was 4 hours long, like I said, this did not need a Royal Rumble. Yes, it did not need a Royal Rumble. Not at all. But this event would have had a Royal Rumble and then a King of the Ring tournament after that, if that was the request.
Let me ask you this. Do you think it really appeased the Saudis because he was in, then he was out?
I mean, that was what I heard. He was there solely because of his resemblance to Yokozuna.
Okay. Now Rey Mysterio, we kind of all figured he was going to be there. I kind of figured that. I didn't see a lot of guys that the only NXT guy that I was like happy that was there was Tucker Knight from the what do you call it, the Heavy Machinery. They're a really good tag team.
And I learned who the Heavy Machinery was at the Greatest Royal Rumble.
Actually, it's funny. The one I like more is Zokovic, or yeah, I think it's the shorter.
I'm
guy.
not too familiar with them. I mean,
it's like Dozovic.
I'm familiar with the NXT people who are mostly on the takeover events.
Yeah, these guys, Heavy Machinery. It's like Zokovic, and then what the heck was his name? Oh, I lost my thought. Oh, Tucker Knight. That's who it was. Yeah, Tucker Knight's. I mean, here's the thing. Tucker Knight is a good wrestler. Like, Heavy Machinery is a very underrated NXT. If you watch the shows, not even just NXT takeovers, you watch the shows, they're featured on there a lot in tag team matches. They're over.
So one person I thought would definitely be in the Greatest Royal Rumble, who was not there. I think he was on the advertising material. Was the Big Show. He was not in the event. I was surprised that he wasn't there. I would have rather seen him be wasted than The Undertaker or anything like that. And that's really why. I mean, again, I've said it before. We said it kind of leading up to the show. Why do they need to have this exact card? Why can't they put on a card like they would anywhere else? Why can't they put on just a really good card? And essentially because a really good card wasn't good enough. It was really on the demand of Saudi Arabia to put on this specific show. I don't exactly know if the Royal Rumble, though, was how specific it was, but essentially it was, we want to see as many people as possible in this event. And it's sad that they had to sell out. They had to sell out their soul, essentially. $200 million is a lot of money. And there's rumors they're going to return back in the fall. And this is no lie. Rumors that they're going to have the quote unquote greatest greatest Survivor Series. Now, how is that going to play out right before the actual Survivor Series?
That's not cool. Here's
to be honest with you, if you're going to do anything, while obviously I'm not interested in the Survivor Series itself anyways, it'd be great. Do the greatest Survivor Series, and then at the Survivor Series itself, you don't even need any Survivor Series matches. There's been lots of years where they don't even have any of the elimination Survivor Series matches. The Royal Rumble, I'm mad that you destroyed, but you can go ahead and have a greatest Survivor Series all day long because a 10-man tag doesn't do anything for me.
Let's do this. Let's do a King of the Ring.
Yeah, greatest King of the Ring.
Yeah, greatest King of the Ring.
16 men, one night, and that'd take you 5 hours to get through.
The King of the Ring in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia.
Yeah.
That works.
And that would definitely be a long enough show. Now, and here's my thing of this show. So unlike WrestleMania, there's not a lot of 25-year-old people who saved up from their jobs all year round to go hang out with their other 25 to 35-year-old buddies in New Orleans and watch wrestling.
Sounds familiar.
On vacation, like you get at WrestleMania. In Saudi Arabia, this was a lot of families that were told to come here. A lot of young kids, a lot of moms and dads were brought to this event. So my sense is this event being 5 hours long, that was kind of counterproductive because if you're not a wrestling fan and you brought your kid, after about 4 hours, you're going like, okay, we got our $3.50 worth. Like and it's almost midnight. Again, if you're appealing to a family audience, why did you want this event to go on till like 12:15 at night?
Yeah, that's that. In that time, that's pretty late. Now, let me ask you this. Did you read the article? I think
which article? The fact that they got mad that they showed women on the video screen. Sami Zayn has Syrian descent, so he wasn't allowed to come.
Actually,
Javari's getting death threats.
Yeah, actually, what I noticed, when I read this article, I knew about the whole women not being at the being able to compete and everything. I get that. But I read that I'm not familiar with Saudi culture. It's not my expertise by any means. But the only women that could be there is if they were chaperoned by a male,
yes,
like by their husband or something.
So Alexa Bliss could have went there with Braun Strowman.
But in all honesty, it was it wasn't that good of a show. I was just bored. Here's the other thing. The highlight. This is a little teaser for later for our social media segment. The highlight was Titus O'Neil busting his ass.
Yeah, and that kind of ruined
awesome.
it too. That was a botch, but the fact that it was still a highlight. So the fact that it was a highlight is frustrating because literally you have 30 years, literally 30 years of a Royal Rumble event. And before the Royal Rumble goes on the air, like literally right before the match, and they do all the Royal Rumble by the numbers, kind of getting you hyped for this match, realizing, oh my God, once a year we get the Royal Rumble and it's like 45 seconds away. It's finally here. The Royal Rumble match. And they do the by the numbers little vignette that they do where they have that woman voice and go, did you know that 65,000 pounds of wrestlers and, the whole 9 yards they do with the Royal Rumble buildup? Well, how are they going to do that now? Because all of the highlights of the Royal Rumble are literally in one Royal Rumble. Before you'd be like, did you know the shortest time was in 1992 and the longest time was in 2006? And this many winners have gone on to WrestleMania to win the championship. You literally have all your highlights for a Royal Rumble that you can use in a Royal Rumble that is not a traditional Royal Rumble. So it would be like all your WrestleMania highlights being at a WrestleMania that wasn't a WrestleMania. It'd be like the greatest WrestleMania moment was at that non-WrestleMania moment.
There's nothing on the line. That's the whole thing with this pay-per-view. There's nothing really on the line.
Like I said, your shortest time in a Royal Rumble history, which again, 30 years of event, your shortest time was this Royal Rumble. Your longest time in a Royal Rumble was this Royal Rumble. Your most eliminations in a Royal Rumble was this Royal Rumble. Your biggest blooper in a Royal Rumble was this Royal Rumble.
I don't think anyone's beating Titus O'Neil, by the way. That was hilarious.
Every kind of a moment that they would kind of stick out out, you know what I mean? Like of the highlight of a Royal Rumble. I liked how it's spread out. The top 10 WrestleMania moments are from 10 different WrestleManias for the most part. And let alone if they were from one WrestleMania that wasn't even a WrestleMania. Like the best SummerSlam moment was SummerSlam House Show that wasn't even SummerSlam. And the second best SummerSlam moment ever was SummerSlam House Show, that same SummerSlam House Show that wasn't even on TV. And the third best SummerSlam moment was this other house show that was a SummerSlam house show that wasn't on TV. You're like, wow, this event really stinks because all your greatest moments aren't even from the event. All the greatest Royal Rumble moments are not even going to be from the Royal Rumble. Yeah. Or all the records and numbers, at least.
Yeah, I mean, to me, I felt like it was a big waste. Like, I'll be honest with you, I watched it later on. By the way, WWE Network, you know, the thing that ticks me off about the network is I got home and it was still going on. That's how long the show was. And when I try to play it, I can't start over.
So
that's stupid.
Now you can, and it took me a little bit. I can't describe it, but I had the same issue watching the Royal Rumble in the middle of the day. I actually was able to watch most of it, but then I had plans as it bled into the early evening. So I actually had to come into these radio stations and watch the rest of the Royal Rumble. And I was like watching it on my phone, and I had to play with my phone to make sure that when I clicked on it, it was going to be starting it from the beginning. And I don't know if I caught it right at the end. Maybe that's why I could start it from the beginning.
Because here's the thing.
But it gave me the watch from beginning option, and it literally I had to push a couple times and it didn't. So I like X'd out because
it happens
that'd
to
be
me
annoying.
all the time. It happens to me all the time. A lot of times, you and I, we both work, Saturday nights here. NXT's usually on, and I'll watch some of it. I'll watch some of it while I'm here.
And you'll click on right as the finish is going on. You're like, oh, come on.
I'm like, it was Johnny Gargano and what's his face there? Tommaso Ciampa.
Yes.
It was at the end of the match. I'm like, oh great! I just ruined it because I flipped on because I was trying to watch it from where I watched. Like even if I had to start from the beginning, I knew where it was in the show where I stopped. Nope, couldn't do it. I saw the finish. I'm like, well, that sucks. So then I had to wait. I waited till it was like over 15 minutes, and then I went back and I was able to watch some of the stuff I didn't see, but I obviously didn't watch the whole. I lied. I did watch the whole Tommaso Ciampa and Gargano match, even though I knew the finish. It was that good of a match. It was like Twitter was blowing up about it, so I was like, I gotta, I saw the finish. I'm gonna go back and watch it.
So moving on from the greatest Royal Rumble, we could definitely talk about that forever. Let's quickly talk about Monday Night Raw. I felt that SmackDown was worth skipping over this week, even though these were both go-home shows, essentially. But regardless, I feel that Raw had the most matches. Raw, if you went and paid a ticket to go see Raw, you might have gotten maybe a better show than you're going to get this Sunday for Backlash. I mean, it was match heavy. I mean, there's obviously a lot of segments, but this is kind of one of those what you wanted to get out of a 3-hour Raw.
Yeah, I agree. I
mean the main event here, and why is this the main? Why are we getting Seth Rollins and The Miz at Backlash? Why do I have to pay to go see Seth Rollins and The Miz at Backlash when you gave away Seth Rollins and Finn Balor?
That was, by the way,
that should be the pay-per-view match.
I agree. That was a good match, by the way.
Yes, that was one of the better Raw matches I've seen in a while.
Yeah, I mean the show itself was kind of eh. I mean, I did enjoy the Braun Strowman, Roman Reigns, and Bobby Lashley teaming up with Jinder, Sammy, and Kevin. I did like that.
So why is the Backlash match with 4 men better than the 6-man match on Raw? Isn't it normally more men and better?
Yeah, usually. I mean, that's how they do it for Survivor
Series. They're like, we're going to
Series.
give you the same 5-man tag we gave you on Raw, but we're going to take out people, so it'll be a 4-man tag. You're like, why is that better?
Speaking of that match, we'll say Sami Zayn in this case, I thought it was funny. The commentator's like, oh, he was ill or something. I was like, that is the stupidest thing. We all know why. He's of Syrian descent, obviously, with all the political stuff going on there.
Yeah, I think that might have been a last-minute decision because last week on Raw, he was planning on being there.
You know what's funny, too? You know who else was supposed to be he was actually supposed to be in the Greatest Royal Rumble was Drew McIntyre. They couldn't get his visa done.
Yeah, there was a lot of, this event could have been great. I'm definitely not knocking WWE going overseas, doing events.
Yes.
I love the fact that they go overseas and put on big events. I would love it if they gave them Backlash because that'd be awesome. WrestleMania is a big deal. Give them Backlash. Make that a big deal. Make every pay-per-view feel like WrestleMania. Just go to a country that they've never been before.
Go to Australia.
They'll get 80,000 people every single night, and then every pay-per-view can be WrestleMania because to that country it'll be WrestleMania. Backlash will get 60,000 and fireworks, and then Extreme Rules will get 60,000 in fireworks. If you go to every country, it's never like how Raw and SmackDown sell out months and months in advance when they go to the UK because they only get it once a year. So if you make
the crowds are great, by the way.
If you make 12 pay-per-views a year, if you make that happen in 12 different countries, that would mean that's 12 different countries which get one pay-per-view a year. So everyone in those countries would treat that one pay-per-view like WrestleMania and would all travel to wherever it is. So you'd have 12 pay-per-views in which you could get 60,000 people every single pay-per-view. For example, I mean, look at this Greatest Royal Rumble. It took 3 weeks and they got 60,000 people to fill into this place just a few weeks after WrestleMania. Obviously, if that was in the United States, they wouldn't have got that because most of the people who were willing to spend that money would have been like, well, you just spent it.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I just spent it. A,
like
B,
2 weeks ago.
B, I don't know if I can get it off from work now.
Yeah,
it's so
on
quick
3 weeks' notice.
Yeah, 3 weeks notice. Yeah, good luck.
So it would have been pretty tough, but I mean that's something to gloss over. Triple H actually recently in an interview just said that they are working on bringing a pay-per-view event to the UK. They said it's still a little bit off, but they're trying to get some the corks off the ground. Triple H said obviously the big thing would be making sure that they can, and I don't understand why it's a big deal. They put Raw and SmackDown on, wouldn't be any different, but I think it's just the time frame he says that we always talk about here and what we saw with the Greatest Royal Rumble. Obviously, I don't know how big the time frame is because they just put that on a Friday on a whim, but he says that that's one of the big hangups is the time frame.
Here's problem solved, Triple H. Watch the show first off. I would do it like this. On Sundays, not during the football season, go to UK. Do it at noon. Because there's a 5-hour difference, so it's like a 5 o'clock show there. Yeah. Who cares? Do it at noon on Sunday.
With the WWE Network, I think this allows for a lot more leeway in this aspect. Like UFC is a good example. UFC every so often has like UFC 186 from Brazil, and it's on at like 3 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, I've seen him on at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, because they're in another country that's on at a different time. I've seen him on even in reverse. I've seen him on really late. You know what I mean? You don't have to have your pay-per-views on exactly the same time. It'd be like, oh, this week Backlash is going to be on at 3 p.m. And to be honest with you, that might get more eyes on Backlash if it's on at 3 p.m. And if you don't get a ton of eyes on it, the good news is...
Except for football season.
The best part, though, about the network is you already have all our money. So now, I mean, I don't want to give Triple H any bad ideas, but technically he can start taking advantage of people being like, oh, we can start putting on pay-per-views at 3 p.m. because we already have their money for that pay-per-view. We already have their $9.99. So we can start doing things like the Greatest Royal Rumble.
They won't do that as a business side. They're too smart for that.
Because let me tell you, the Greatest Royal Rumble, if they were actually trying to sell the Greatest Royal Rumble, and they actually did, you could buy it in the United States for $54.99 on pay-per-view. I don't know who did that. But if they were trying to sell the Greatest Royal Rumble on pay-per-view, and that was their only means of watching it, your only means of watching Greatest Royal Rumble was on pay-per-view, I feel that they would have definitely made some accommodations to be like, maybe we can move this to Saturday. Maybe we can move this to a little bit better time. You know, there would have just been, they would have obviously wanted a little more preparation. But the fact that they already know they have our $9.99, they can put these things on a much quicker span. They can say, listen, we'll put it on Friday at noon. If they can't watch it, they can watch it on replay. We already got their money. It don't matter anyways. We're not looking to really sell this event. We don't still have to get their money. We already have their money. So now we dictate when we give them the product.
Now moving on to SmackDown. The one takeaway I did have from SmackDown, because it was kind of a boring show anyways, the one thing I liked this week was Lana and Rusev are back together. You saw Lana and Rusev there. And she looked at Rusev and was like, yeah, you know, he's holding you back. So you're getting rid of Aiden English, it sounds like. Sounds like there's going to be a breakup pretty soon.
Move him over to 205 Live.
Aiden, here's the thing.
In there? They fit?
I mean, Aiden, I don't think he's that big, is he? Aiden could probably fit there. The problem is, from Aiden English, this is the most pop he's been getting, you know, since he's been up on the main roster. I mean, ever since the Vaudevillains split up and what's his face left? What was his name?
The other Vaudevillain.
Yeah, we'll go the other Vaudevillain. You can comment.
I remember he had the mustache.
Yeah, the mustache guy. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, if you want, you guys can comment on our YouTube and let us know exactly who it is, because I don't know off the top of my head. But nonetheless, that guy left the business, left WWE. I think he's back on the independent side, and I'll be honest with you. Aiden English I think he's been doing a great job. I think he's been a great asset to Rusev. I think they're pushing the Lana thing too quickly on this.
Well, I mean, I don't know how far they're going to go with this. Maybe they're trying to create some sort of animosity between Rusev and Lana, or maybe Lana and Aiden English. Maybe a little mixed gender match. Maybe she might be bigger than him.
That's a possibility.
So for those who are watching on YouTube, don't forget to check out what we will have is Backlash predictions, as well as our social media SmackDown of the week. And check out the video where I will be live outside of the Prudential Center for WWE Backlash this Sunday.